Caro, and welcome to episode 84 of Caropop. Our Caropop guest this week is Devo lead guitarist Bob Mothersbaugh, a.k.a. Bob 1. Bob belongs to one of the band's two sets of brothers and one set of Bobs. Bob's older brother is Devo co-founder and frontman Mark Mothersbaugh. The classic lineup also included the Casale brothers, Gerald, who shared most of the songwriting and singing duties with Mark Mothersbaugh, and Bob, a.k.a. Bob 2, who played keyboards and rhythm guitar. Drummer Alan Myers didn't have a brother in the band, but when he joined, he was replacing Jim Mothersbaugh, Bob's and Mark's younger brother. What was life like when the Mothersbaugh brothers were growing up in Akron, Ohio? Were they a musical family from the start? How did Bob pick up guitar and start playing with Mark, and eventually Devo? Years before the 1978 release of its debut album, Devo recorded an especially woozy cover of the Johnny Rivers hit Secret Agent Man, with Bob 1 singing. That version, along with an early take of Jocko Homo, wound up in Devo's short 1976 film, In the Beginning Was the End, The Truth About De-Evolution. They used to screen that short before concerts. You should track it down on YouTube. Secret Agent Man resurfaced in a less freaky version, with Bob still singing on Devo's second album, Duty Now for the Future. David Bowie became smitten with Devo and almost produced the first album. Bob explains how Brian Eno wound up taking the reins. Although Devo has a reputation for being a synth band, the debut album, Q, Are We Not Men? A, We Are Devo, is a piledriving guitar album with Bob 1's playing out front. Bob has co-songwriting credits on Gut Feeling, which is one of the great guitar intros of all time, plus Space Junk, Sloppy, and Shrivel Up. What was the band's dynamic like back then? How did Mark Mothersbaugh and Gerald Casale introduce songs to the band so everyone could shape them? Bob Mothersbaugh co-wrote 3 more songs for Duty Now for the Future, Wiggly World, Pink Pussycat, and Blockhead, and tells an excellent origin story about that last one. He has writing credits on some later songs too, such as Cold War on Freedom of Choice and Through Being Cool on New Traditionalists. But Mark and Jerry were the dominant songwriters going forward. Something also changed in how they were conceiving and presenting the songs and how the songs were being performed. How did Bob feel about being the guitarist in a band moving deeper and deeper into electronics? What was the surprising change in direction that Mark and Jerry decided to pursue for Devo's third album, Freedom of Choice? Did the band expect Whip It to be its breakout hit? What dark impact did the new fame and fortune have on Devo's members, particularly Bob 1? As the band became more reliant upon sequencers, drummer Alan Myers left, and Bob has some feelings about that period as well. He plays guitar on the 2010 comeback album, Something for Everybody, but did he enjoy that music and that experience? We'll let him tell it. And what's the state of Devo now? Bob Casale died in 2014, and Alan Myers died the previous year. The band has continued on, but when Gerald Casale was a Caropop guest last summer, he wasn't shy about expressing his frustrations with Mark Mothersbaugh. Have fences been mended before the band travels to Europe in August? What does Bob 1 remember as the peak Devo experience? You'll hear all that and more in this Caropop conversation with Bob Mothersbaugh. Are you in your studio? Is that your basement studio or?
It's Mutado's basement studio.
Nice. So that's you and Mark, and it's where you guys work on soundtracks and stuff, right?
Yeah. It's a building on Sunset Boulevard.
When you were growing up, at some point there were 3 Mothersbaughs in Devo. Were you guys like this musical family when you were growing up? Did you put on like little music shows in the living room and stuff?
No, but every Saturday we had to take piano lessons from the organist at church, Mrs. Fox, and she would come and like whoever was old enough would have to take lessons. So we got indoctrinated into music pretty early. And my dad wanted to be a clarinetist when he was younger. So he was really into like Dixieland jazz. He would make all the kids clean up the house while Dixieland jazz was blaring out of the speakers. And so we got a lot of musical influences.
So, and is this in Akron?
Yes, in Akron.
So how much did kind of being in Akron, do you feel like shape your musical sensibilities and just where you grew up?
As far as shaping it just, when we were Devo, we played for a couple of years just in Akron, and we weren't like critiqued and panned for a bad performance or something. We were allowed to experiment for a couple of years before we started going to New York.
Right. You were all learning piano. At some point you picked up the guitar. Was it sort of clear that each of you had your own sort of talents and interests?
Not clear, just I started out played keyboard in a band for one day, but I just wasn't really good enough at it. So I started playing bass, and I would play with Mark a lot. He was into organ players that just had like a bassist or something, and he and I would jam a lot. And then he was in a band, and the guitar player had an extra guitar that he let Mark bring home and play with. And I just started playing with that and found out that that's what I liked.
Do you remember what kind of guitar it was?
It was a Gretsch hollow body electric.
Nice.
Yeah.
The George Harrison model.
Might have been.
Were there guitarists that you admired? Like, were you like, or was it more just, hey, I just enjoy playing this?
Well, I liked Keith Richard a lot. Chuck Berry. I kind of started with Keith and then went backwards to Chuck Berry.
Right. As did Keith.
I met Keith once in the 80s at a club in New York, and I was so nervous. I told him that next to me, he was the best guitar player in the world. Of course, for the next week, I went, why did I do that? Why did I do that?
What did he say?
Oh, good attitude.
See, that's all right.
Yeah.
Was Mark always someone who was a songwriter, or were you guys playing sort of in cover bands first? Or?
He was. I mean, he learned to copy any style he heard and play it perfectly. So, yeah, he probably was writing stuff. He had an organ band. It was just organ and bass and drums or something. And I imagine he wrote stuff for that. I can't remember. And then I had a rock and roll band that we wrote some songs, started writing songs. Actually, in high school, I don't know how this happened, but in some class, you were allowed to go do a project that's like what you wanted to do when you grew up. So I went to a recording studio and made up a song and played guitar and bass on it.
Wow. Yeah,
it was horrible, but
what was the song?
I don't remember. There was no lyrics. I'm not really a good lyricist. Just a couple guitar parts and a bass.
Did it sound like anything in particular? Like, were you trying to sound like sort of an old surf instrumental, or was it, based on something else?
It was a little bit surf instrumental, a little bit early Who. I kind of liked Peter Townshend's choppy chords, but it was just two parts that just kept repeating. And it was my first time in a studio, even though it was just like a little tiny basement, somebody's house. Dave Metz, who was a radio repairman, but also had a studio. I have no idea if there's any version of that anywhere in the world, but I hope not.
Wow. No, that would be good. That could be a Record Store Day single or something.
Nah, you'd change your mind if you heard it.
You never know. Do you remember the first record you ever bought?
I don't like to tell people this.
Good.
It was the Singing Nuns, a 45 of the Singing Nuns singing Dominique. I was very young. And I had a dollar in my pocket and went to the music store.
So you brought it home and said, "Look what I got."
Yeah.
Did you and Mark did you have like similar musical tastes in general growing up, or did you sort of veer off in different ways?
Early on, Mark and I used to sit down in the basement on the pile of dirty clothes, and he would put records on. Like I remember the Kinks and Eric Burdon and the Animals, and I can't remember who else, but we just listened to everything.
And your brother Jim was he the original drummer in Devo? And what was his sort of role in all of this? Your musical family growing up.
Well, the rock and roll band I had, he was in it with me. We were writing songs and playing around town. I don't know. He liked drums, even though he had taken a lot of piano lessons.
Why did he not stick with the band? With Devo, that is.
Well, there was a period where we were down in the basement in Akron and nothing was happening. we would play like once a year. And he just said, I gotta like make some money. So he started a musical instrument repair shop and just kind of fell out. And I think maybe Jerry is a hard person to work with. I think he kind of intimidated Jim a little bit.
Yeah. So tell me about like when you first sort of hooked up with Jerry and how, and obviously, Devo wasn't just a band, it was also a concept. So was it sort of a matter of getting along musically, but also sort of signing on to this, vision that had to do with the presentation and the ideas and all of that?
I worked a day job and saved money and bought amplifiers for my band, the rock and roll band. So I had a couple guitar amps and a bass amp. And at some point, Mark and Jerry just came and said, hey, why don't you be the guitar player for Devo? And I think they just wanted to use the amps. They wanted like real amps. But I had gone to see them and it was like, oh, this is different. They played somewhere in Kent at, a little tiny student dorm theater or something. And it didn't make me say, okay, I got to quit what I'm doing and join Devo. But when they asked me to play, I went, okay.
So what did you think of those early years? I mean, it was relatively out there by the time, the album came out, but that's in sort of the scheme of like rock music and pop music. But when you listen to like the early stuff, it was very much more out there. Like how did you feel about all of that?
Well, there wasn't a lot to do in Akron. And, it's like arena rock was out of the question. There was no way we were ever going to be able to do it or, and we didn't want to. So we just did whatever made us laugh, just like being ridiculous. Not ridiculous, but just like trying anything. When I was, going down one of these YouTube rabbit holes, I watched this video or film of you guys doing Secret Agent Man, and I think it's from like 75 or something like that, which is one of your big vocal showcases. But it was an even sort of stranger, woozier version of that than the one that's on Duty Now for the Future, because you guys had that was on the second album. Satisfaction was on the first album, but Secret Agent Man goes back a while. I mean, was that the first sort of prominent cover you guys were doing, or did you do a lot more in those early days? That was the first prominent cover, and it wasn't really much of a cover. It was a hint of a cover.
So why that song? Was that a song that you just loved, or is just sort of fun to play along with, and it just sort of came out?
I'm not sure why. I have no idea.
And how much were you singing back then? Because you don't do a lot of leads, but that was one of them.
If you listen to the hardcore album, I sing more on that than I do on, any of the Warner Brother albums.
Right. So why was that? Did you move away from singing on purpose, or?
Well, this is another thing that I don't really know. It just kind of happened. There was nobody sat down and said, let's do this. But it was Jerry used to sing most of the songs. And like when I went to see them in Kent, Jerry sang the majority of the songs. And Mark just wore a monkey mask the whole time. Then somewhere when we were down in the basement, Mark started singing more. And it was like, okay, you sing them. So I don't know, maybe one night I was feeling like, yeah, I need to sing something. I don't know. I don't remember, but it just evolved kind of organically.
What was the dynamic like between, Jerry and Mark back then, just in terms of playing and also them, writing songs and bringing them in whatever form, they would introduce them to you guys? And
well, there's a big rift between the two of them now. And looking back, I see that it was there for a long time, but I didn't notice any riff when we first started. It was all teamwork. It was like somebody would play something and somebody else would go, oh yeah, put this with it. And everybody was like, yeah, that's what we want. Have you been in a band?
Not really. No.
Well, yeah. It just, when you're in a room with three other people, things just come out when you're just there for hours.
So was it more like early on sort of this organic thing where you guys would just, be in the room trying to create stuff together, and then later it became, okay, I wrote this and I'm bringing this in, and here's the demo for you to listen to, or here's the song I'm going to play for you on my guitar and have you guys figure out.
Right. Yeah. No, it was always more organic. Jerry had a song called Auto Mowdown. And one day my brother and I were in the basement. He was playing drums and I was playing guitar. And I started, instead of just going do or something like that, I started playing chords and stuff. And Mark and Jerry were upstairs and they ran down and Mark immediately started going, and Jerry started singing his song and it was like, oh, there.
Did that feel like the first sort of organic Devo song in a way?
It kind of hinted at something else. Most of the Devo songs were more single notes. It felt a little more fleshed out. Yeah.
What was the first Devo song where you thought, oh, this is a great song?
Well, that's a tough question. Well, now this is embarrassing because I remember the song, but I don't remember the name. Do 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 bow down 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 ba down 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 bow down bow.
I'm trying to name that tune.
But because I got to just like play crazy lead guitar, that was sort of in my rock and roll vein, and it was just a lot of fun.
Well, it's interesting because Devo became known as a more electronic band, but certainly that first album is a real guitar album. I mean, did you feel like, in the early days you were the guitarist in a guitar band?
Well, in the early days, no, I was just one instrument. It just happened to be guitar. Like we used to play shows where we just had one amp and a TAC 4-track mixing board, and we would all plug into the mixing board. Like I could use my amp, just the head. I could just plug the head into it, and we would just come out of one amp on stage. And it was just we were just four parts. When it came to the first album, by then we started playing like a real band. When Jim had left for a while, and I brought in Alan to play drums, and Bob Casale came back. It's like I always, I love guitar and the sound of guitar, and so it was kind of fun.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are a really hot band on that record. I mean, I think that people sort of, I don't know, I think that anyone who sort of goes back and listens to that first album, who sort of knows you from the electronic later stuff, which is also great, but you'd be like, oh, they were actually like a very rocking band at the time. Gut Feeling has one of my favorite like intros of like any song ever. Just that guitar that just sort of keeps, sort of building and building and building. Do you remember how that came about? Because I assume that's you doing that riff that just sort of keeps cycling through.
No, I'm actually playing the other part. We were at the time that was written, I think we were rehearsing in it was a little cinder block building next to a car wash that one of Mark's friends owned. And we were allowed to rehearse in his cinder block building. And I was just playing those 5 chords. I thought it was fun just because it wasn't 4 chords. It was like it was fun to add an extra chord in. And then Mark just started singing over it. And Bob too came up with the actual picking part.
It takes so long to get going, and it's really exciting. And then you just have that great first line from Mark, where like something about the way you taste makes me want to clear my throat, which is just one of the funnier first lines of any song ever, I think.
Yes, it made us laugh.
At what point did sort of the costumes and uniforms and visual presentation become a key part of it, and how did you feel about that?
I was okay with it. We experimented a lot. We wore those blue suits on stage, the kind of fireman's jumpsuits, the light blue suits that are in some of the early videos. Right. One time I found this safety pin, like a giant safety pin, like about a 6-inch long safety pin. And I said to Jerry, oh, we could like wear diapers on stage. So we actually took towels and we bought a bunch of those safety pins and like safety pinned the towels on like diapers. And we're playing somewhere like at the Crypt in Akron. And it was like after 2 songs, it was like, oh, shoot, we're going to be up here for another 45 minutes in these. This is like, it was one of those ones where we only did it once. But, we were up to trying things. And this goes back to like what I said, where we got to like hone everything down before we got out of Akron. Because Mark and Jerry had this silk screening company, and they silk screened signs for an industrial supply company, and that's where they found those yellow suits on a shelf in the place. And somebody grabbed some and brought them home, and we wore those at a show.
And those did stick.
Yes, they did.
So what was your thinking as a band at the time? Were you guys thinking, oh, we want to be like a really popular rock band, or were you thinking we want to be a really interesting sort of art experiment? Like what was the goal at that point?
For me personally, I was just having fun. I'm sure if you talk to Jerry, he's told you what he was thinking. Growing up, I knew I was going to play on big stages. I kind of like knew it. I mean, I was a shy kid, and I don't know how I could have thought something like that, but I did. But, when we started playing, it was fine if we were playing at a club in Akron for 15 of our friends. We were just playing, having fun.
What did you get out of those performances?
Well, there's something about getting on stage and playing in front of people that's just magical.
Did it make you see your brother in a different way? Because Mark became, again, and as you mentioned, that Jerry was sort of singing more, and Mark really became the focal point, on stage. And, I wonder, growing up with him, if you were like, oh, that's totally Mark, or whether you're like, wow, I didn't see that part of his personality until he kind of came alive doing this on stage in this band.
The second one, I think, yeah, he became a different Mark, but it didn't happen overnight. So it wasn't like I ever said, oh, wow. It was organic. It just kind of went that way.
You guys had the support early on of people like David Bowie and Neil Young. Were you starstruck by any of these encounters? Like, what did you think of sort of ending up in those circles?
Totally starstruck. It was like, I couldn't speak. Actually, we recorded everything back in Akron, and we had like hours of demo tapes. And my girlfriend drove me up to Cleveland to see Iggy Pop, and David Bowie was playing keyboards for him. And of course, there's only one big hotel that all the rock bands stayed at, Swingo's. So we went there to the bar afterwards, and David Bowie came down and sat in the booth right next to us. So I was holding this demo tape, and finally my girlfriend took it and gave it to David Bowie. I couldn't get 2 words out.
Wow.
So starstruck.
So was that how he discovered you guys? Was because your girlfriend gave him the tape?
She gave him a tape, which he took back to Germany and threw in a box. And then Iggy Pop was listening to all these tapes in that box. And he went, oh my God, you got to hear this one. This can't be a real band. And he like David listened to it. And then they heard we were playing in New York. Oh, no, I think Iggy came to see us in Los Angeles first at the Whiskey. And then we went to New York to play a show, and David Bowie asked if he'd come and introduce us.
And you guys were like, sure.
You can do anything you want, David.
What was on that tape?
The hardcore stuff, and then weird stuff, from basement recordings.
And at some point he was going to maybe produce the first album, right? And then it ended up being his, buddy Brian Eno.
He was going to produce the first album, but at the last minute, he said, oh, I just got offered this job in Berlin, acting job. So why don't you guys record in Cologne at Connie Plank Studio, and we'll get David Bowie to come in and kind of co-produce it. So we said, okay, we love David Bowie. I mean, we love Brian Eno too. So we went over there, and somewhere during the recordings, we got the contract from Bewlay Brothers, which was David Bowie's company. And they wanted like 50% of everything forever. So we had, we were like, oh my God, we can't sign this.
Right.
So Brian Eno said, look, this is only costing $10,000. I'll pay the $10,000. Warner Brothers can pay me back, and I'll be the producer. So we went, yeah.
So what do you remember most about Brian Eno's work on that record in collaboration with you guys?
Oh, I love Brian Eno, and I love all his stuff, especially his solo albums, the first 2 solo albums. But
sure,
when we were there, we had been playing for several years, playing the same songs, and we were really tight. He said, okay, guys, just set up and play a song. And they had this crazy tape recorder that was 40 tracks, a 40-track Stevens multi-track tape recorder. So he would take tracks and like add effects and record them on separate tracks. And the effects weren't even, most of them were like little pedals, but he would put effects on each instrument and record them over here. And we'd come in and listen to the song after we played it. And he'd put in his effects and we'd just be like, no, take that one out. Take that one out. We just wanted to sound like what we did live. So he was kind of hamstrung.
In the end, did that album sound like you guys thought you sounded, or did it sound, esque?
Pretty much it sounded like us. He did some stuff where he sang the background on Uncontrollable Urge. He's got an uncontrollable urge. I think he and David both sang on that.
Really? I didn't know David Bowie was on that.
I think he did. I think that's what Mark told me.
Wow.
I mean, I was there. I don't remember. I was probably in the house like at the time, but there's subtle influences. Brian had subtle influences on the album.
Do you remember at the end of that process just hearing the album and thinking, wow, this is our first album? And do you remember sort of what your reaction to it was?
I loved it. It was delayed because of Warner Brothers and Virgin Records having some lawsuit because we tried to get out of the Warner Brothers deal to sign with Virgin. But when it came out, it was announced, I was back in LA and they announced that they were going to play the Devo's first album from start to finish on K-Rock. So I just jumped in my car and just started driving with the radio up all the way. And it was, I'm surprised I didn't kill somebody or get pulled over for speeding because I just drove all over LA for that 45 minutes just going, oh my God, oh my God.
Yeah, my introduction, which was probably a lot of people's introduction, and I was like 14 or something like that, was seeing you guys on Saturday Night Live. And I think that the Rolling Stones had been the musical guest the first week of the season, and then you guys were the second week, and I was like, what is this? And I thought it was really cool. But I remember you playing Satisfaction and Jocko Homo, and what was that like for you? Again, you're stepping into onto that stage that Rolling Stones had played on the week before. Band from Akron, doing your stuff.
We were a great band. We were really tight and very confident. But, we were still kids. I remember calling my mom, like between songs back in Akron, going, did you see that? Did you see that? We're going to do one more. And I remember we played a little bit slow. We weren't quite so stiff looking. But when Lorne Michaels came up and said, okay, guys, 10, 9, 8. Remember, 40 million people are watching and they want to be entertained. 2, 1, go. We just kind of like stiffened up and like really exaggerated robotic moves.
He really said that?
Yes.
Like, what was the purpose of him saying that? Like to get you guys feeling better about things? Like that seems a little counterintuitive. Like, oh, if you want to scare the crap out of everyone, it's funny.
I have no idea, but it scared the hell out of me.
Did you, when you did the second song, Jocko Homo, did you feel was that different because you'd already done it once and now you could just sort of loosen up a little bit?
Yeah. We had played those songs so much, it was just muscle memory. Like you didn't even have to think about playing.
I saw you a bunch of times and you could find this all on YouTube. And I recommend people out there listening that you do this. You guys played a bunch of times on Fridays and there's some awesome performances from you on the show Fridays. What was the vibe on Fridays like compared to Saturday Night Live?
Well, Saturday Night Live was like the pinnacle of a band being on TV. It's like, it doesn't get any better than that. Fridays was like kind of a wannabe Saturday Night Live.
Right.
So it was like, okay, we do what we do. It was no big deal.
Larry David was in the cast back then. I don't know. They should like get you guys on Curb Your Enthusiasm now or something. When you went to do the second album, Duty Now for the Future, the producer was Ken Scott, another guy who'd worked with David Bowie. Gerald Casale had sort of complained about the sound of that record. I was talking to Brad Wood, producer, and he considers Duty Now for the Future one of the 5 greatest albums ever made, a foundational work, and thinks Jerry's totally wrong about the sound of it. He thinks the sound's great. What do you think of it?
Well, see, that's where we were really lucky having Brian Eno produce the first record, because he was just subtle in what he did. He let the band be the band. The second album doesn't really feel like a band sometimes. We did record things separately. We kind of did basic tracks together. I don't know. It's hard to say. When the album didn't sell that well, it's like you can come up with a lot of reasons why, but
were you guys playing more sort of live and together with Eno than you did with Ken Scott?
Yeah, it was a small little recording studio in Germany. It was like we were in the barn. And with Ken Scott, the studio was much bigger. And I think I didn't even use speakers. I think my amp head, just went right into the board. It was a little less organic feeling. Right.
Were most of those songs ones that you'd had in your repertoire before you recorded the first album?
Yeah. They were the ones that weren't good enough to be on the first album.
They're still pretty great, but it's definitely an odd record, but there's a lot of great stuff on it. And it's also sort of feels a little transitional, because Are We Not Men is more just guitar record, and Duty Now is more the synths and electronics are kind of coming in. And then Freedom of Choice, the next album, it's like you got Alan Meyer's drums, and he was really a beast of a drummer, and maybe under-recognized for like what a key part of that sound was, because he really pushed the beat. It was not like any sort of mechanized beat. He really propels the thing forward. And then you have you on the guitar still. How did you feel sort of being the main guitarist in a band that was sort of moving away from those sort of organic instruments?
I can't remember how I felt. I just loved playing guitar. And I had a new guitar that I got from Ibanez, that Blue Cloud guitar. So it was really fun playing with that guitar. They were good songs, and it was fun playing them.
What did you see your role as guitarist? Like there's some guitarists in a band, and it's like, okay, I'm going to stand in the spotlight and do this big solo and be a virtuoso. And obviously it's not what you were doing. You were sort of coming up with these sort of perfect parts to fit with these other parts. Like how did it work for you in terms of, becoming part of the sound and being so essential to it?
Well, a good example is George Harrison, who was a great guitar player, but he just played little bits, little leads in the middle of a song or something that were like completely tasteful. I like that kind of playing. I went to see Cream when I was a kid, and it bored the heck out of me. Just, okay, more guitar lead. Here comes the bass solo. Here comes the drum solo. But, so I liked short and concise. I loved the Ramones. I mean, their leads were just like 2 bars or something. And right. The Sex Pistols' first album, I love Steve Jones's leads, because it wasn't like guitar gods. It was just like really tasteful, well-placed stuff. And that's what I liked.
I can't remember what song I was listening to yesterday. It might have been Girl You Want, which obviously has like the, that central riff to it. But there were other like these like little guitar, sort of sneaky guitar parts that sort of come in, at points where like you're listening, like, oh, that's a cool little thing you just kind of snuck in there between, these other little keyboard things. Like you were kind of picking your spot and doing the cool little extra.
Yeah, I like that kind of stuff. It's, I wasn't trying to dominate the song. I just wanted to make it good and play what I liked.
For the album Freedom of Choice, was there sort of a conscious feeling of, okay, we're going to make like a poppier record after the last album that maybe wasn't as well received and maybe was a little more out there?
Well, Mark and Jerry said, they always say that they talked with our manager and said they were going to do an R&B style record, but I guess they didn't talk to me about that, because I was just playing with like what was there.
That's an R&B style record?
That's what they said. You'll have to get Jerry back on, ask him about that.
There you go. I don't really think of like Whip It and Girl You Want and Freedom of Choice being R&B, but maybe there's some roots in there or something. When you were recording any of those songs, or did you think, oh, this is going to be our breakthrough hit?
We thought "Girl You Want" was going to be the hit, and we actually got Roy Thomas Baker to remix it as a single, and Warner Brothers put a bunch of money into promoting it as the single from the album, which it wasn't.
It's such a catchy song, and I thought "Whip It" was fun. And then at some point, every hour I was hearing "Whip It" on the radio. Did that surprise you that song just leapt out like that?
It surprised everybody. It was kind of just a filler song. Nobody had any pretensions of big hit for "Whip It." Everybody was taken by surprise. Apparently, it started down in Florida at disco clubs, gay discos, where they started playing "Whip It." And then it just like spread throughout the US. I remember our manager would just keep saying, "Oh my God, it's number one. It's doing this, it's doing that. Everybody's playing it." We went, good.
Did that song being such a big hit change Devo in a fundamental way?
Well, yeah. Yeah. I don't know for everybody else, but for me, we didn't make that much money on "Whip It," but I immediately went out and bought cocaine.
Had you had it before, or was that just sort of like, oh, now I can afford this? I can afford an expensive habit.
Yeah, I'd had it before, but yeah, I could actually buy more than a quarter of a gram or something.
Was that an issue in the band in general? Like substances or whatever else become more of an issue after you guys became really, really popular?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, everybody at some point or other went off the deep end with drugs. I kind of took it further than anybody else, which is why I sighed when I told you about it. But we kind of became who we were, big rock stars.
And how long a period did that sort of cover? Like, was that sort of the rest of like your 80s Devo-hood?
Yeah.
And do you think that affected sort of your creativity and ability to be together and make albums?
Yeah. Yeah. Nobody hung out with anybody else. And of course, it was a confluence of things. It's like Mark got sequencers that he would write songs completely on sequencer. And then he'd put me in the room with a guitar and amp. He'd go, "Okay, play guitar on it." I'd be like, "Wait, what?" And, he would just put it on repeat. Like for 10 minutes, I would have to sit there and just trying to figure out the chords and the structure of the song and then notes. And it's like, where is there room for a guitar on this? And of course, Mark and Jerry were both saying, guitars will be obsolete. The future will be all synthesizers. Guitars will be obsolete. So it was just like, of course I was like, okay, well, instead of coming to practice, I'll just go take cocaine I think it affected the band because it wasn't the band that we were back in Akron at all.
Right. Well, and also when you start moving more into drum machines, you're giving Alan Myers less to do, which,
yeah,
and he eventually left.
Yeah.
So early on, you guys are sitting around in a room and you're coming up with stuff. By the time you're doing New Traditionalists and Oh No, It's Devo, was it more like, Mark would come in with something he's already created on his, sequencer, and then Jerry would come in with something he's already demoed? Or did anyone just play live something? Like, how did that work?
Yeah, no, there was no organic, like, let's just pick up instruments and play. It was just work to me, like just at the factory putting stuff together.
Was New Traditionals also, was there sort of a sense of, I don't know, reacting or even rebelling against the fact that you guys had this huge hit? I mean, the first song on that was the single, I think you co-wrote it, was Through Being Cool. It's like, sort of like, yeah, we're done with that now.
No. I think we're
not cool. We're not going to be cool anymore, you guys.
No, we once you get a taste of success, you really want more. That was just supposed to be a song that people would like and buy.
You've written Wiggly World with Jerry and Blockhead and Pink Pussycat with Mark. What were those like sort of co-writes like, when you were working with, either one of them?
Well, like Blockhead, of course it was recorded originally written in a basement in Akron where I just wanted to write something that wasn't 4/4. I think it was like 11/4 or 11/8 or something like that. Weird time signature. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, it's 11. I wrote that and was playing it. And then Mark came down and started. He goes, "Oh, you got lyrics for that?" And I go, "No, but I was kind of thinking of that commercial, that sinus medicine commercial where the person had the blockhead. And I was going to call it Blockhead. So Mark came up with lyrics for Blockhead.
One of my daughters especially loved that song. She loved the 90-degree angles.
That was Mark.
So, and what about co-writing with Jerry? Was that a different sort of process?
Wiggly World, I was watching a sitcom, and like after a kind of humorous incident, it went strings or clarinets or something. So I just started playing that on guitar for a while, and then Jerry came in. I said, "Listen to this. Let's use this in a song."
There's a clip from you guys being on, and it was touted as your first appearance on a talk show, and it was on the Mike Douglas show, and you guys mimed Whip It, and then you were all sort of sitting in these chairs, but Jerry was between Mike Douglas and John Schneider from the Dukes of Hazzard, and they referred to him as the spokesman for the band. Was that generally the way it was perceived among you at that time, that Jerry just sort of talked for everyone?
He usually did. He's very concise and almost like he would have been really good on a debate team.
Right.
And so it's like, nobody wants to hear me sitting there going, "Yeah, I just like to play guitar. I just like to have fun playing guitar." So we let him talk. And the more we did that, the more he became the spokesman. Was
there, any sort of growing rivalry between him and Mark, just in terms of being in the spotlight and being recognized and writing, whatever songs they were writing?
I'm sure there was. I didn't notice it at the time, but I'm sure there was. Much later on, it starts to become real apparent, where they both have their own lawyers and stuff. But
any memories of recording "Oh No, It's Devo" with Roy Thomas Baker, who I didn't realize had come in and also mixed the single of "Girl You Want"? But on one hand, that was like a very electronic record. On the other hand, it sounds really good. I always like that record, actually, but it is definitely more in that electronic realm than even Freedom of Choice.
Yeah. Oh yeah, much more. No, I don't have any good recollections of that.
You guys aren't all sitting around in a circle playing live on that album just because there's so much electronic stuff, I would imagine.
Right. No, not playing live at all.
I'm going to skip ahead to when you guys did Something for Everybody, the comeback album from, what was it, 2011? I should know that off the top of my head. Was that a fun thing to come back and do together? I'd seen you previously in Chicago at the Vic, and you did the 2 nights of Are We Not Men and Freedom of Choice. And then you'd sort of been dribbling out some of the new stuff at that time. So it seemed like there was this kind of resurgence of Devo as a creative force at that point.
It wasn't like it was, and it just went farther and farther away from what it was that I liked. I still like playing guitar, and I I still like my bandmates. I didn't really like the music that much, but that's what it was.
Like, were Mark and Jerry working together on it? Was it like, okay, here's a Mark song, here's a Jerry song, I'm just going to do what I can do?
Truthfully, I don't know. I wasn't really involved that much in the songwriting.
But like even the recording of it, like were you guys together when you recorded stuff, or was it always like just sort of one person coming in at a time?
We were always all there.
There's been this documentary called Are We Not Men was going to maybe come out, and then supposedly, Jerry was complaining that Mark was blocking it from coming out. Have you seen this thing? Do you know anything about it? Is it going to ever come out?
Parts of it might be on the new documentary we're doing. I never watched it. I didn't like the guy who was making it. Leave it at that.
I saw a Reddit post of someone who'd seen an early cut of it and was saying that like there's like all this stuff about like Jerry's sex life in it and stuff. And he wasn't sure why that was in there, but I don't know whether that has anything to do with you guys not wanting it out, but
yeah, probably does.
What is the state of Devo right now? Are you guys going to do more shows together?
Yeah, we have about 15 dates in Europe in August. And then maybe even more shows in the US in November. There was a time where Mark and Jerry were fighting, and Mark was making more money scoring movies, and he didn't want to go out on tour for a long time. There was a dearth of Devo shows around the world. But recently, he's changed his mind and decided he likes playing. Maybe he realized we're getting old. We better do it now before somebody else dies. But yeah, we've got a lot of shows lined up.
Is that something you look forward to?
Yeah. And most of the day it's work until you get on stage and you just have fun for an hour and a half. We're going to some countries I've never been to. I think we've never been to Finland. I can't remember. But we're going back to playing shows in places that I haven't been in decades. So yeah, it'll be fun.
Put the energy domes back on.
One last time, yeah.
So when we're doing that, like, and you're touring together, does everyone get along okay? I mean, is everyone like in a separate bus, or how does that, like, what's the dynamic now?
There's always something that a couple people in the band can find to fight about, but we kind of get along. People don't sit right next to each other at the airports or or whatever. We don't share hotel rooms. I think everybody's reached an understanding where we can get along.
Are you working with Mark on Mutado stuff in the meantime?
I mostly do my own shows. We have done some collaborations on songs. We did something for a SpongeBob movie. Mark and I wrote a song together. Plankton. We wrote a Plankton song. And we wrote something for Matt Groening's cartoon. I wrote a song, Underwater Mermaid Orgy. But mostly, yeah, I just do cartoons mostly.
Is everyone in LA now?
Of my kids, yes. Jim still lives in Akron, and we have a sister in Akron. And I have a sister in Arizona. But my immediate family, yeah, is all in.
Do you go back to Akron often?
I've only been back about once since my parents died. I think I went back for a devotional. It's been a while.
Is there any point you look at as like sort of like this was like the pinnacle of Devo, or your experience in Devo, like sort of like when you guys were like at your peak as like a band and enjoying it the most?
I think playing outside the walls of the Vatican, playing a show where, it was like the old kind of stone walls, like an old castle. The stage was set right in front of it, and all the lights were shining on it was like, oh my God, this is this is a once in a lifetime thing.
When was that?
The early 80s. I think it was still Freedom of Choice tour. Or it was we were doing a tour for the first album in Japan, and they had everybody was really polite in Japan, and they would sit in their seats, clap like, polite claps after the songs. But they had seen a video of Come Back Johnny that we shot at the Roxy, where all the people in the audience came up on stage at the end of the song. And so for the encore, when we came out and did Come Back Johnny, they had seen the video and they knew what to do. And when we got to the end of the song, all these kids jumped up on stage, and they would come up and kind of like do circles around us and reach out and kind of touch us and then pull their fingers back and giggle. And I thought, this is another one of those once in a lifetime things.
That's great. I recently watched your version of Hey Hey My My with Neil Young from Human Highway.
Apparently in his book, he said that he heard the Devo's first album and he loved that guitar. And he mentioned it to Elliot Roberts, who became our manager. So I always wanted to thank him for that.
Yeah, Jerry told the story about how Elliot Roberts basically leveraged Saturday Night Live with saying, like, if you guys take Devo, I'll let Neil Young come on the show. And that he actually used...
Probably.
So that was pretty cool.
They didn't let new bands play on Saturday Night Live until us.
Yeah, and the reception was so good, you probably like opened it up for the B-52s and whoever else came afterwards.
Yeah.
What was that? What was working with Neil Young like, by the way?
He's another one of those people I was in complete awe of and couldn't really sit down and talk to. So it was just like watching him from afar.
Well, while playing the Hey Hey My guitar riff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice. How much do you care about this whole Rock and Roll Hall of Fame thing?
Not at all.
Well, there you
Not
go.
at all. I mean, I could go around and say, yeah, I'm in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but I'm still me.
See, my problem with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is that I think it's stupid to have a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The bands, my enjoyment of album has nothing to do with like official. My enjoyment of bands, artists has nothing to do with whether they're officially, recognized or not. But then it also pisses me off when like someone like Devo is not in there, because I'm like, come on, like you can't put in all these other groups and not have.
Right. It's like there's some political element to the process of being inducted that I don't really care for.
Yeah, or just ignorance or something. I don't know. Anyway, you're in my Hall of Fame, and that's what counts.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on and talking with me. Thanks for all the great music you've made.
Well, thank you.
That's it for episode 84 of Caropop. Thanks so much to Bob Mothersbaugh for sharing so many insights and memories about his work in a great original rock band. Devo will be playing in Norway, Sweden, Finland, Germany, the UK, and Portugal in August. So that would be a lovely time to go on holiday in Northern Europe. Caropop is produced by Chris Swake, who decidedly is not a blockhead. I'm Mark Caro. Please follow Caropop on Twitter at CaroPopcast. And you can follow me as well at Mark Caro at MarkCaro. Also visit the Caropop website, caropop.com, where you can find this podcast and enter your email address so you'll hear about upcoming events and episodes. Please share this episode, subscribe, tell your friends, and tune in again next week for another Caropop conversation. Thanks.